Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the channel for another edition of Andy the Cabbie, live from the living room, as I've got the place to myself, so I thought I'd stay a bit warm instead of sitting in my freezing garage. Well, the title of this live stream is What Really Happened to Graham Moore in Chester. Now, here's a picture here for anybody that's not too sure. This is me and Graham outside Chester Crown Court on the last day of the election petition trial to do with the Runcorn and Helsby by-election. Somebody asked me the question the other day, why a Crown Court for a civil matter? Then the very simple answer is an election petition trial has to be held in a court in the constituency which it's related to, or the nearest one available, which in this case happened to be Chester. So that's why we were there. I've had questions sent to me by email over the last, few days actually, saying, what happened with Graham? Do we have a judgment yet? What's going on? And I was waiting because I wanted to do a live with Graham, which we're going to do at some point, and he'll go into far more detail. But to be fair to everybody, I wanted to jump on myself and run through and give you the information that I have. Now, I was horrified the other day, a couple of days ago, to actually discover this tweet. This was from Sarah Pochin. Chester Crown Court has dismissed the election petition brought by the English Constitution Party. After a detailed and forensic review of the by-election, the judges confirmed that the process in Runcorn and Helsby was proper, lawful, and fair. That's the public statement that Sarah Pochin put out. Now, there is a video attached to that tweet, which I will play for you now, and you can hear exactly what she had to say, and that's this one.
I wanted to share this video with you today. So this morning at Chester Crown Court, there was a judgment passed that dismissed a claim by the English Constitution Party that the election in May had not been fairly conducted. The claim was not brought against myself or Reform UK. It was actually brought against a combination of the Royal Mail, the council and the police in the way that they conducted the election. Now, I haven't been able to talk about this case whilst it's been ongoing because, of course, you're always at risk of contempt of court if you do that. But now we've had the judgment today, I can say to you that the election has been upheld as having been conducted fairly and properly by all of those parties that I mentioned. Costs have been awarded against the English Constitution Party for bringing this case. And in a way, it's been an example of proving that our elections are run democratically and transparently. And if you want to challenge, then you can challenge. But I'm very happy with this ruling and what's happened today. So now we can move on. And I just wanted to make this video because I know there's been some headlines which may have been misleading or worrying to some of you, saying that there was a challenge to my win. But that's not the case. And now we move forward.
There's a few comments that Sarah Pochin's made there, which we'll come back and address very shortly. But it's the Royal Mail, the police, the council, and it certainly wasn't against her, and certainly wasn't anything to do with reform. That's the rough gist she's making of it. Well, the other thing that I actually saw, and I'll bring this to you now, is, let me see, this article from the BBC. This was the other area where I knew something was amiss. Now, let's go through this in brief. Reform UK by-election win, legal challenge rejected. A legal challenge to the result of a by-election won by Reform UK earlier this year in Cheshire has been dismissed by judges. The parliamentary election petition was brought by the English Constitution Party's Graham Moore, who received the fewest votes of the 15 candidates who stood in Runcorn and Helsby. May's by-election, called after ex-Labour MP Mike Ainsbury stood down following his conviction for assaulting a constituent, was won by Sarah Pochen with 12,645 votes, just 6 more than Labour. 6 votes in it. Can you imagine that? Yes, there was a recount, I granted that, but 6 votes. After his legal challenge was dismissed, Mr. Moore was ordered to pay the 2 respondents' costs, Miss Pochen and the acting returning officer, Stephen Young. Mr. Moore's request to have the result declared void and for an independent recount to take place was initially also made against Cheshire Constabulary and Royal Mail. Both cases were dismissed earlier this year, but senior judges ruled a trial of the petition should still go ahead, with Miss Pochen and Mr. Young named as respondents. At the 3-day election court hearing in Chester, Mr. Justice Spencer and Mr. Justice Bryan heard Mr. Moore speak about the statistical impossibility of receiving 50 votes, which he said was exactly the same number he received when he stood in the 2016 Tooting by-election. That's very important. Mr. Moore, who represented himself, told the court, "I was the only one that had exactly 50 votes and exactly 50 votes in 2016. Both of these counts were run by, in effect, Labour people in high Labour areas." He claims he saw an estimated 116 votes cast for him at the Runcorn and Helsby count and suggested election fraud could have been carried out by Labour despite the party's defeat. But the judges who viewed footage of the count and heard from Deputy Returning Officer Penny Housley ruled Mr. Moore had been mistaken in his belief. Mr. Moore also claimed a full recount had not been held when it was revealed how close they had been. Rather, he suggested bundles of votes were recounted instead. Also rejecting this claim, the judges found a full count had taken place. They additionally ruled they were satisfied there had been no act of omission by the returning officer or any other person in breach of their duties. The judgment stated there was no sleight of hand and there was no chaotic scene at the count. The count and all parts thereof were properly observable, and the candidates and their counting agents, Mr. Justice Bryan and Mr. Justice Spencer, who noted in their judgment that £35,000 has been raised by Mr. Moore through a crowdfunding account, we'll come to that in a minute as well, assessed Mr. Young's and Miss Pochen's respective costs at £45,000 and £30,000. Election petitions can be lodged by candidates or electors, but guidance from the Election Commission warns there are costs attached and independent legal advice is recommended. So that, folks, is the BBC's take on the whole thing. And as you can see, there's some of the detail there. But as with all things, it's not entirely accurate. Now, before I break that down a bit, I want to show you another screen dump of something that Sarah Pochen actually put up, and that's this one. You would have thought that with $1 billion legal threat from President Trump, the BBC might be a bit more careful. This is a completely misleading headline. There was no legal challenge to me, my campaign, or that of Reform UK. And it went on, I've actually cut a bit off, but it went on to say the case was brought by the English Constitution Party to examine whether the local council run the election properly. That's what she said. Now, yes, the BBC weren't entirely accurate in the way they, reported this. But she's not being entirely accurate either in the way she portrays what actually happened. Now, let's talk about the media first of all, shall we? Just a reminder here, I was there. I was there for all 3 days. You know, unlike these online influencers that came out yesterday, 10 of them at least, take the British pound to spout government crap. I went up there out of my own pocket at the cost of £400 to £500 by the time you count hotel room, train fare, food, drink, because I believed it was important. I believe in the sanctity and the purity of our elections. It's one of our constitutional rights in this pamphlet right here, taken from the Bill of Rights. No word of a lie. You can go and look it up. That's why I went up there, because if our elections aren't free and fair, then we got problems, folks, haven't we? For Graham, this was never about becoming an MP. He knew he wasn't going to become an MP. It was about getting the name of England out there. And then it became something else when he observed what was going on. It became about the sanctity and the purity of our elections, because they should be free and fair. It is a God-given right. Now, there were two triggers for this. The 50 votes in Tooting, more or less a decade ago, and the 50 votes he got now. Now, you think of all the online influence that he's got. You look at all the support he had locally, and you tell me he only got 50 votes. Well, that's the judgment that was upheld. Those were the two triggers. If Sarah Poachin only won by 6 votes, then, you know, it doesn't add up right. I don't care what judgment has been passed. It doesn't add up right. If she'd passed by 20,000, 10,000, or a large majority like that, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. But after a recount, 6 votes, she said it wasn't about her. It wasn't about reform. It was merely the process. Now, this is the judgment. And I will say throughout, I was there for all 3 days and I covered this because I believed whoever did cover it wouldn't cover it accurately and fairly. And you know how many members of the press I saw there over the 3 days? One single person from the Associated Press. And all they did was just wrote a thing, bunged it in the pool, and let all the other media outlets have their fill. That's what happened. Now, as you can see, this is the first page of the judgment. I'm going to stick a link in the chat so you can read it at your pleasure, because it's about 30 pages long. I have actually read the whole thing, all of it. And I've gone over parts of it a couple of times. Now, you can see on the very first page, before the Honourable Mr. Justice Bryan and the Honourable Mr. Justice Martin Spencer, those were the 2 judges. And you can see my coverage of this in a previous live stream. I won't go over there again because I've been there and done it. This is specifically about the judgment. And you can see very clearly here, Sarah Poachin MP and Stephen Young returning officer named as respondents. Now, the reason they have to be named as respondents is because under the Representation of the People's Act, they have to be. Sarah Poachin, for the very simple reason is she's the beneficiary of this whole affair in that she was returned as the MP. She might not have done anything wrong, but she has to be named as the respondent. And then we have Mr. Stephen Young, the returning officer, who was in charge of the whole thing, answerable as a Crown servant, has to be named as a respondent. Now, let's talk very briefly about the other 2 that Sarah mentioned in her documentation. Cheshire Police and the Royal Mail. Now, when Graham first filed this petition, it was against Sarah Poachin, Mr. Young, the Royal Mail, and Cheshire Police, the Chief Constable of Cheshire Police. Now, those two were ditched fairly early on, but let's address this. The Royal Mail did not deliver Graham's election material, thereby impeding his ability to get votes from the local area. Graham received a letter from, we will call it a whistleblower, who saw Graham's election material in the post office with a note on top saying, "Do not deliver." On the first day of the trial, this was mentioned. They tried to get it put back in, and they more or less threatened to adjourn the whole thing on the strength of this letter saying, well, we need to consider this. Are you sure you want to put this in as evidence? No, let's get on with it. Cheshire Police unduly harassed and stressed out Graham with unwarranted interference and questions. And also when he was out on the campaign trail, apparently harassed and asked questions then, which they wouldn't do of anybody else. But these two were dismissed. Let's move on to Sarah Pochin. Let's move on to the returning officer. And as I said, both of these individuals were named as respondents for the reasons I've already identified. Mr. Young, because he was the returning officer. Sarah Pochin, because she was the beneficiary of this whole affair. She became the MP for Runcorn and Helsby. What they should have done was shut up and let nature take its course. Sarah Pochin, her private residential address isn't known, and I don't blame her with the amount of stick that MPs get these days. So Graham served the papers on her to the House of Commons, Parliament, and he had a photo which showed all of the envelopes, the recorded delivery receipts, the fact they were received, and a cheque for $5,000, which he had to pay as a deposit before all of this started. Sarah Pochin and her defence team tried to get this petition struck out on a technicality, trying to claim that the paperwork wasn't served on them properly, in the right place and in a timely fashion. So if it had nothing to do with her, why didn't she shut up? Why didn't she just let nature take its course? Why was there 2 appeal hearings beforehand? Same with Young. So if it's got nothing to do with you, why go through all the hassle and expense of the appeals? Graham had to pay their costs, £26,000, which was raised through the GoFundMe, which we will come to in a little while. We did it. We raised 26 grand for him in 24 hours. So out of that GoFundMe that's there at the moment, 30 whatever £1,000, most of that is gone. It had to go on appeals, the cost of the appeals. George Galloway stood in an election, and Graham, I think, was a counting agent. Graham witnessed impropriety at that election towards George Galloway. And he said to George, I'll write you a statement telling you exactly what I saw. George wouldn't go to an election petition because costs are totally prohibitory. It would bankrupt you. And again, we will come to that in a moment. Yes, you can run an election petition, but you've got to have the green. Let's go through and have a look at a couple of pages of this. So we had Adam Richardson and Timothy Straker. Timothy Straker is a KC, which, as I understand, is on a retainer, and he's got literally 40 years of experience dealing with election petitions and all that sort of thing, and he was there over the whole lot. Adam Richardson pretty much piggybacked off of Timothy Straker, and it's costing 30 grand. Nice. So let's go through. So introductions, what it's all about. And you always get precedent and previous cases set. There's stuff in here about the witnesses. Now, the petitioner, this section about the petitioner is Graham. And in there, it discusses what, what Graham saw, what he believed happened. And he was cross-examined by both Timothy Straker and also one of the judges. Valerie Phillips took the stand. She was a count agent at the election. Lovely lady. Spoke to her at quite some length. And she also said she saw more votes than were actually declared at the end of the election. Nigel Jacklin took the stand and gave evidence. Now, Nigel Jacklin is a statistical expert, and he backed up the fact that the odds of Graham getting 50 votes in 2 elections, all that time apart, just non-existent. And then there's a little bit about the cross-examination of Mr. Jacklin. And then we come to Penny Housley. Penny Housley was one of the deputy returning officers that was present on the night. I went over her testimony in a previous live stream on this, which you can go back on the channel and have a look at. I'll leave an end screen actually out there for you, so you can go and have a look at that and see what she said. And she basically went through the process. This is important. Was the election so conducted as to be substantially in accordance with the law as to elections in circumstances where there was no actual omission on the part of the returning officer that affected the result? We go through more of it. There's brief mention of the Royal Mail, the police, and then you go into how the count was conducted with a plan of the room, which was introduced on the morning of the first day of the trial. Most of these judgments are very, very lengthy. And let's talk about the video evidence again. This is important. Determination. We accordingly determine, direct, and order that in accordance with section 144, paragraph 1 of the Act, the petition is dismissed. The first respondent was duly returned and elected. No other person should have been declared to be returned or elected. That's not what it was about. The election of the 1st of May for the Runcorn and Helsby parliamentary constituency was not void. We shall pass our aforesaid determination to the Speaker of the House of Commons. Costs. This is the section on costs in the judgment. Now, I'm only skimming over this because I'm sure Graham will go over it in more detail. But basically, you had a KC and you had another barrister there. And they basically make a determination of what they want, and then they are told what they're going to get. And the long and short of it is, between Mr. Richardson and Mr. Straker, you were looking at 70 grand. 70 grand for all of that. Now, one thing that I noticed about Graham's evidence in the actual trial, there was his own testimony. There was statements from people saying that they never received any information regarding the election of Graham. There was a testimony of Graham himself. There was a testimony of Valerie Phillips. There was a testimony of Nigel Jacklin. There was video evidence, and this will make you laugh. It was taken from one of the public broadcasters, which showed parts of the election. And you could clearly see that after a recount was ordered, they weren't counting the papers properly as they were ordered to, physically recounting. They were thumbing the edges. So there could have been anything in there. But when you look at the actual judgment, and please have a read of it, you will note that Graham's evidence that he presented barely got a mention. Barely got a mention, even though there was evidence in there. And the thing with the video where they said about the counting the corners, I could see that. I wear glasses and I was sat at the back of the court. You could see it, even if it walked up and slapped you in the face, you could see it. Yet there was conjecture all there. The problem with judge-led trials is you are left at the mercy of the judiciary. It's them that make the decisions. I do wonder if this was a jury trial, a situation where it was jury-led, and they could see the evidence, they could see on the balance of probabilities what was going on. Would things have been different, I wonder? You had that Penny Housley who was there. Her job was to protect her system, which, by the looks of it, she did. But there was evidence there which has not been addressed or acknowledged in any way, shape, or form within the content of that judgment. The whole thing's a disgrace. Now, as far as the 70 grand goes, at one point they were trying to chase Graham for £500,000. Financial terrorism. They could yet still bankrupt him. And I know he's fighting and, trying to get that sorted out and get reduced down at the moment as we speak. Now, I'm going to be doing a live with Graham at some point. We have mentioned it and haven't fixed something in, but I'm sure we will, and I'm sure he'll give more detail when he does. One thing you have to remember is that this was never about being an MP. This was about free and fair elections in a democratic society. End of story. Free and fair elections, a constitutional right. On Sunday, I'll be going to Epping, where the English Constitution Society will be giving a seminar on English constitutional and common law. The leader or head of the English Constitution Society happens to be Graham Moore. So I'll be going up there on Sunday, and that's what it's all about. And we'll see what's going on. If you are in Epping, or if you are about, it starts at 11:30, 10 are on the door. Come and have a listen, and you will learn what your rights actually are. I'm going to live stream it. I've got mics this time, so hopefully the sound quality will be a bit better than it was. I'll go up there with some toys, which will be good. I'm going to go through the comments because a few of you have left some comments, and we'll see what you have to say, and then we'll knock it on the head. But can I ask you, please hit the like button, share this to whatever social media channels you have to let everyone know what was going on, and yeah, that's it. So let's have a look through the comments. Who we got? Strad Threers Coys, afternoon. Good afternoon to you. Hope you're well. It's well and truly the afternoon now, isn't it? Sheila Miller, good afternoon to you. Hope you're well. Good afternoon. A fox in London. Is London the hen house? You tell me. Raymond, hello to you. Good to see you. Julie Baldwin, hello to you. Hope you are well, one of my moderators. Craig, good to see you. Bit of bad news, which you've made public, which I'll put up on here. On Tuesday, you found out you got a brain tumour. I speak on behalf of everybody. I wish you all the best. Prayers to you. and hope for a speedy recovery and that they can sort you out. Obviously, keep in touch as much as you can, and we're all praying for you. Best wishes to you and your family. What was the court decision? Do you now accept the court's conclusions? Well, I accept the court's conclusions in that a judgment has been passed, but I don't accept the court's conclusions because I don't agree with the court's conclusions. But I'm not a judge. I just hope that someone someday will prove what's going on, because while I was up there, I was approached by 3 different individuals, all with tales to tell about inappropriate activities at elections. And if you Google and have a look at loads of documentation online, this is widespread. This is systemic throughout our entire democracy, and it makes a mockery of the whole thing. Yes, at some point we lost, but at some point somebody will win and somebody will out it. I saw the evidence, saw it with my own eyes. I drew my own conclusions. What more is there? Alan reposted this stream on X. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Alan. Good to see. The chat is being stifled. Sheldon is saying, yes, I'm trying a bit of an experiment with a few streams where I've got a horizontal and I've got a vertical stream running. So you can either watch it on a mobile phone like that or on a computer like that. And I've heard a few complaints about chat. So what I'll probably do is go back to the standard way of doing things until they iron out the cracks, because that's no good, really. Taxi driver, afternoon, Andy, just tuned in. I'm a cabbie in the city of Bath. Wow. And I get everywhere. I get absolutely everywhere. I've not been to Bath for years. I think we went down it one time on a holiday quite a while ago. Paula W, daylight robbery. Absolutely. Well, one of the disturbing things in the actual trial was the fact that they told him that his conduct was exemplary. And they even told him they're satisfied he bought this in the public interest. Now, when something's bought in the public interest with no malice, which they verbally told him in the court, you can apply for what's called a protected costs order, which means if it was bought in the public interest, you get off lightly, basically. And what they've done in the judgment is gone the other way from what they said in the court and threw the book at him. 70 grand. You can't make it up. You know, if you vote in an election or if you stand in an election, you have a right to go call an election petition trial. But the problem is it is so costly, you could end up bankrupt if it goes wrong, as we found out now. So in effect, it's a system protecting itself. It really is something. Test. Okay, I assume that relates to the aforementioned trouble with the chat. Boy, what a battle for all of us. Absolutely mental what this government is getting away with. If everyone talks about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they ain't going to lock us all up. That is exactly the right thing to do, the right thing to say. We all need to learn what our rights are. The Hamlin Lectures are a very good place. If you go over to Exeter University and look for the Hamlin Lectures, they're all free. They're all there. They can start teaching you about English law. Information about the Constitution is out there, the Bill of Rights, the Act of Settlement, Declaration of Westminster, the Coronation Oath. All of those things are all out there for you to learn. And what you see out there every day, what the government are doing every day, they're subverting our constitutional rights, and they're getting away with it because people don't know any different, and we need to spread that education around. Danny, hi Andy, love your content. Thank you very much, Danny. Appreciate that. PJC Net. It was obvious he would lose this, even though he had the right to challenge. That was always the big danger, because at the end of the day, it's the system protecting itself. So he was going to lose, and they were going to throw the book at him. I mean, the thing is, if he gets made bankrupt, he could never stand in an election ever again. And it could potentially put the English Constitution Party in danger, which, again, is not a good thing. Taxi driver. I've always had suspicion that elections have been tampered and interfered with. I mean, are the ballot boxes properly sealed, or has there been duplicate substituted boxes? I'm up to something in the background. I ain't going to say anything yet because I don't know whether I'm going to be successful at what I'm up to, but I'll let you know. But I'm not leaving it there. You can't. The whole frigging system is rigged against the English. Absolutely. They're petrified of the English because of the aforementioned Bill of Rights and Act of Settlement will undo all of their shite. And they know it. They want to keep us under. Absolutely. Another comment here. The whole so-called justice system has always been how much money you have, which makes it not justice, same everything. Yeah, I mean, they screw people over with legal aid. They've screwed people over with all sorts of things, haven't they? So it makes justice unreachable for an awful lot of people. I mean, I was involved in a case a little while ago, and I was we'd say an ad hoc advisor to somebody, and I managed to get them out of a lot of the trouble they could have found themselves in, is what I'll say. And also, there was another thing I was involved in, which I came out of successfully because, again, I read and understood the laws surrounding what it was I was doing, and that's what people have to do. Is the GoFundMe still open? Well, let me check because that's a very valid point, actually. Yeah, it is. We need to talk about this. I'll leave your comment up on the screen. Now, the GoFundMe is still open. You can see there. And I want to put this on record for any greedy bastard barristers who are actually circling around like hawks. That says £35,731 is in that GoFundMe. That is actually incorrect because that GoFundMe was open at the time of the appeals. In fact, it was open before the appeals. And at least £26,000 to £27,000 of that GoFundMe, at least, has been spent because that's how much Graham had to fork out at the appeal stage. So that figure is a little bit misleading. There's not really, well, there's pocket change left. What they're talking about doing, I'm led to understand from Graham's live stream last night, is that they're going to shut this one down and start another one from scratch. So it isn't misleading. And I think that's a good idea. And then we all know where we are. Right, let's have a look at another couple of comments. Misty Cat, you need to go to law school if you want to raise anything like this in court. A YouTube law degree is not accepted anywhere, is it? Well, Graham has read law for 30 years. He's not a lawyer by his own admission and doesn't want to be involved in the system. And they tried to run the trial accordingly. But you know, you need to know what you're doing. It's definitely a different world. Islam is being misled for spiritual warfare against us by the system, using digital ID to control and take away our feeling close to God. What happened in China? Don't have much, but I'll put something in the fund. Oh, okay, then I'll wait for you. Yeah, it's probably best to wait for the new one to come out, and then we know where we are. Carl, to be fair, I think it confirms what we knew deep down. Somebody called him very courageous for trying, because many wouldn't because of the financial implications of this whole thing. This is interesting. Tracy, have anyone seen the document that DinoBane has discovered? No. Send that to me or get in contact and let me know what's going on. We all need to stand up for our rights. Don't listen to the government scaremongering like COVID days. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's happening all the time, isn't it? 40 watching and no chat going on. Very good. There's about 225 in the chat at the moment, but I think it's all the split screen which I've been trying. It really does, give you grief. I like your content, but you need to move on from the common law and constitution stuff that has no legal standing. Act of Parliament override old laws. There's a very important thing to understand. Any statutes or anything of that nature that Parliament try and put through, if it violates your common law rights, then it makes that unlawful. It's very plainly put in the legal texts. And also, where you come to mention it, I'm aware of another case, which I won't say anything about because I won't want to jeopardize it, but it's someone taking action against the government. And you know what the government's defense is? The Bill of Rights. So it's all very much legal. It's all very much active. The problem is no bugger knows about it. These people, these judges and these barristers in these courts don't know about it because they're not taught about constitutional law. When they become barristers, it was all forgotten about in the 70s, around the time they tried to pull us into the EU. It's all a coordinated hash job. Andy, who are the robbers on anti-social media you said were a few corrupt ones? I'm not naming names. And to be fair, names weren't named. But I have suspicions. Rupert Lowe said there was 10 that he got out of the Justice Department. I've got an idea probably who at least 2/3 of those 10 are. But I'm not saying anything for now. If and when it comes out and I'm proved right, I might have something to say about it. But those that take the British pound and spout rhetoric and spout propaganda that's in contrary to the welfare of your country, you should hang your head in shame. It's a shame that Epping is too far to travel, taxi driver says. It's a couple of hours from me, and I'm going to live stream it. Misty Cat, I've been on more than one jury and can tell you you have the same chance of a fair judgment with a jury or judge trial. So please stop complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm just stating fact. So-called justice has always been about how much money you have, which makes it no justice. Same everything. Absolutely. Let's a couple more comments. Here we go. Why not tell us who you think they are? You can have an opinion, just don't add a caveat, because it could be twisted. It could be made out to be something it's not, and I can't be asked with the bullshit that comes with it. And they can try and make something of it. I don't get involved unless it comes out. But suffice it to say, think about it. We're controlled by the Brexit Remainers, not the English, who can see through the fog and farts. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's right, Carl. Man-made laws do not override God's law. Fact. English law is God's law. God's law is English law. That's stated fact. And also, there is a supremacy clause in the Constitution which says English law is supreme, can't be overridden. And again, a lot of these people in positions of legal authority won't know that because they were probably never taught. There's no dedicated, that I know of, constitutional section where you learn how to be a lawyer. It's all based on administrative law, civil law, Roman law. You know, it's not good the way it's going. And as we can see with the costs involved, you don't have access to justice. Anyway, that's enough. I hope everybody got enough information out of that to have a rough idea what's going on. As I said, I'm going to try to do a live with Graham. We just got to fix the date, and then he can give you more detail. He is on his own channel on Rumble, The Full English. Go and have a look over there. He's on most nights. Keep an eye on this, because if there's anything that comes up and we need to push it, I certainly will. Please subscribe to my channel. Share this with your friends. Hit the like button, because that helps the algorithm shove it around. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. And as always, I look forward to talking to you. Toodaloo.